Gosh, I was not being very quick then, was I? Welcome back, everyone. Some more people coming in. Good work, well done. Come on in. We're just about to get started, thank you. We have a front row, which is, I think, always people who are willing to sit in the front row are very brave. So thank you for doing that. Everybody okay? Yeah? General nodding, which we like. There's a lot of people online. Some 28,000 people online. So if you could just bear that in mind. The online audience is vast this morning. Come on, cheer up, everyone. I mean, I'm trying to make this as interesting as possible. The good news is that as interesting as possible is about to happen because we're very fortunate to have a minister with us, Gareth Davies, MP, who is the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, and our very own Sarah Williams-Gardner, who is the CEO of FinTech Wales, is going to come up and interview and speak and talk to Mr. Davies. So firstly, thank you both. We just discovered that Gareth and I were both in Boston at the same time last week. Somebody needs to build an app, right, where you can, find out where someone's going to be so you can, grab a drink or grab a meeting. Gareth was appointed to the Treasury in April of this year. His responsibilities include economic growth, of course you wouldn't be surprised to know that, energy and infrastructure, and he has served on the House of Commons Treasury Committee from 2021 to 2022, which is fantastic. We're going to do a quick photo op, which we think doing it before he starts rather than just wandering up on stage, we're all going, what's going on? So first of all, welcome on stage, Sarah and Gareth. And why don't we do the photo op with you two first, and then I'll step in. Some good use of red in the costume department today. I mean, you're really, really lovely, actually.
Sorry, can I just have
okay.
across it?
Story of my life.
Get out.
I did bring a flag. I don't know if anybody, we could. I don't want to impose a flag upon, but we are in Wales, right?
He'll get so much credit when he goes back
See,
to Westminster.
I brought this all the way from California. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's not that heavy.
There we go. This is a proper.
There we go. Now we're properly doing it.
This is a proper photo. Lovely.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Sarah, over
Alex,
to you.
Thank you very much indeed. Always a pleasure. Thank you. So thank you very much, Alex, for the introductions. That saves me having to do that. In addition to some of the responsibilities, Minister is also responsible for excise duty. So when we see anything extra going onto our little bottle of wine or our gin, which many of you in this audience know that I'm very partial to, I'll be speaking to this gentleman to make sure that we don't make it too expensive. Before we kick off, obviously as a minister for the Conservative government, the Conservative government post the financial crisis in 2008 really took a deep look at the financial services sector and realised that the competition really was not there. 4 or 5 major banks which were dominating all of the provision to those of us in society. So George Osborne back in 2013 made a very public announcement that you were going to increase competition in banking and in finance. And that commitment was absolutely backed up by opening up the ability for new entrants in the market. And I think that was very much the formation, or at least the naming of what we now know as the FinTech sector. It encouraged challenger banks to come into the market. We hadn't seen a new bank come into the markets for 100 years. Metro was the first new bank, and following that, we've seen many new challenger banks, Monzo, Tandem, and of course Starling, which you all know that I will promote to the end of the world. So that changed the landscape greatly. It gave us open banking. It gave us PSD2. We're moving through those things. You've promoted and supported the Open Banking Institute. And more recently, off the back of the Khalifa report, you've also supported CFIT, the Centre for Finance, Innovation and Technology, which is looking at challenging the wicked problems to take this industry to the next level. Before we get into all of that, Gareth, why were you so keen to come to Wales?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And I didn't realise this is the first one in person, so it's a particular pleasure. And I think it's important for me to make a quick disclaimer before we start, because obviously my name is Gareth Davies. And yet I'm an imposter because I'm not actually from Wales, but my grandfather is. He's from Mumbles in Swansea, which apparently is where Catherine Zeta-Jones is from as well, apparently. There's clearly something good in the water there. But it is a great pleasure to be here to support both Wales and the technology sector, because the first thing to say is that we recognise completely in the Treasury the vital importance that Wales plays to our overall economic performance, our overall UK GDP. We recognise the importance of technology, not just to economic growth, but the creation of jobs, not just of today, but of tomorrow, and the innovation that keeps us all safe and makes Britain a great place to invest in the world. So there are a combination of reasons when you think about our love of Wales, our support of Wales, the importance of the technology sector, and you put it all together into FinTech and what's not to like. So I'm here to support you and all the businesses that are driving the economy here, and to say thank you, actually, if nothing else, that the innovation that we will see in our country in the years to come will come from all parts of the United Kingdom, but we know that it's already coming from Wales. And so it's about time that we all recognise that a bit more in Westminster, and that's why I'm here.
Absolutely. Well, it won't come as any surprise. I'm sure there is a little bit of a tick list to see how often I say that Wales is pathologically modest, and we are about to change that. We're going to make ourselves louder and prouder. And it was, you started your career in investment banking. You spent 14 years at Columbia Threadneedle Street Investments and rose up the ranks to lead their ethical, sustainable funding sort of offering, I understand. So you will have seen a lot of changes in the financial services sector. And just as we walked into here, we had the opportunity to introduce Gareth to Chris Meadows, who leads the semiconductor sector here in Wales. Because if it wasn't for the developments of semiconductors, we wouldn't have these devices, and therefore we wouldn't have the banking apps and the FinTech sector that we have. So what are the changes that you've seen in the time of being in the financial services sector, and more latterly, what is the government doing to support those changes and take them even further?
Yeah, so it's been transformational, complete change. In my time in financial services, in asset management, it was completely different from the time when I started to the time I ended. In fact, one of the last things I did was work on basically a new line of business which incorporated both augmented and artificial intelligence into how we rate companies to be able to determine their value from an ESG perspective. And that was something that, if you'd have asked me in 2006 when I started, that's not something I would have envisaged. And now we see lots of financial services firms and banks use data and use algorithms in ways that we could not have imagined. And so the potential, not just for value creation, but for protection and things like financial inclusion, I think is really exciting and is only going in one direction. It's not just that, though. It's the importance to making sure that financial services remains a vital part of our economy. Technology as a whole, I think, contributes around £8.5 billion to our GDP each year, and FinTech of that is about £3.5 billion. Right? So it's a massive part of what we're trying to do in the economy. And as I said right at the beginning, being able to innovate in this sector is going to be critical, not just for making sure that we democratize financial services in a greater way, but that we are continuing to innovate in a way that means that we're a brilliant place to come and invest.
So just picking up on the democratization point, because I think you were speaking recently and promoting the importance of savings. So one of the fintechs that we have here in South Wales, which is Wealthify, does exactly that. It democratizes access to savings. So whereas many people would see these products as inaccessible, when you can start your savings journey with £1, then obviously that is starting those good behaviors. But it brings me on to the inclusivity point, because I said the more we democratize these services, the more we can include people. So where do you see the real opportunities for sort of inclusion, whether it's savings or, we were listening to the team from IE Hub just as we came into the room this morning about management of debt. Where do you see yourselves and the government really supporting this industry to address those types of financial inclusion issues?
So I think the first thing to say is that for over successive governments, we have not managed to crack the issue of financial exclusion. There are too many people today who are not saving enough for retirement, and even far too many who don't even have a bank account. And so we are very much focused on that in the Treasury and across government. In fact, there's a cross-government working group on this at the moment that I'm a member of. But I think, what can financial services and technology and the marrying between the two do for that problem? We're already seeing it through the ability to access information, but also access things like accounts and savings products and even funds, to be able to invest in funds that are, a portfolio of stocks is something that's completely alien to most people out there, but now you can do it on your iPhone or your smartphone, I should say. And so it is absolutely something that we are trying to encourage in the industry, which is why we support FinTech so strongly. But we also know that we've got to put in place the protections as well, and we'll probably come on to this, but we've got to make sure that we're capturing the opportunity to ensure that people can access products that have more information at the tip of their fingers, but that we do that in a way that protects consumers and makes sure that people aren't accessing things that's perhaps too risky or such like. So it's about getting the balance right, but we absolutely see this as a transformational opportunity in order to tackle the pervasive issue of financial exclusion.
And you sort of alluded to the fact that you were looking at people not being excluded from bank accounts, and we've seen a lot of that in the press, maybe now a few months ago, specifically with individuals who are being denied bank accounts. Now, that's one thing for people who have a voice and can speak quite loudly, and the press will pick up their stories. But it's very difficult if you are excluded from having a bank account to actually running anything in your life. So you sort of touched on, and let's explore it a little bit further, data and information, because we're in a world now where technology and fintech can start giving more people access using new and alternative but safe data points. So again, where do you see yourselves sort of regulating in that sector to make sure that any consumer will be protected?
I think there's different strands to this. Obviously, we have the consumer duty that you and I were speaking about just before this, so that financial institutions are much more mindful of protecting consumers. And I think my interactions, they absolutely are, and the vast majority of financial services companies put the consumer at the heart of their business and are very mindful of their individual circumstances and risks. I think the critical thing to appreciate, though, is that technology is moving so quickly. We have a regulator in the Financial Conduct Authority who are doing a good job of keeping pace, just as the SEC are in the United States. If you look at crypto, for example, we've just consulted on what we may or may not wish to do to be able to capture the opportunities while also protecting consumers as well. We've got an AI initiative underway at the moment where Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is convening for the first time ever global leaders into the UK in Bletchley Park in November to talk about both the opportunities of AI, but also the risks and the safety aspect. So the regulator, of course, has a vital role to play, but it's important that the regulation moves with the technology and that we stay alive to that. Of course, it's critical that the FCA and other regulators have the right people and that they're engaging all the time with the industry as well as the government on that.
Yeah, and you alluded to the consumer duty, which we saw coming into legislation at the end of July this year, and that is very much how you've responded to not those lenders that are doing the affordability checks correctly and with good due diligence, but this is to actually get the bad actors and make sure that this industry is very much controlled. And we do see with the FCA that they're very much at the forefront. They are very innovative and they are very approachable to our industry. Yeah. So we're keen to continue to work with them. So, but as we see AI, and I'm glad you alluded to the summit that is happening, because you said it's the first time that we'll see a summit like that, and that is being held here in the UK. So we're seeing the UK again at the forefront of these technologies. And actually this conference was kicked off with a focus on AI, with the rapid sort of change that we're seeing in that, and where we can really see advantage being brought to society as a whole. We can see that coming into the financial services sector very much in potentially prevention, potentially reporting. But what do you see as the challenges for this industry to make sure that that technology is used fairly, that it's used ethically, and how are we going to keep not only on top of it, but try, if we can, to see what's coming down the line so we protect the consumers? That's almost an impossible question, but as you're here, I thought I'd put you on the spot. So, it's really important that we protect consumers, and I know that whether it's the Bank of England, the Financial Conduct Authority, the PRA, really how we can use this technology, contain it.
So I think I would repeat what I started with on this conversation, which is most financial services firms treat customers with the utmost respect and exactly as you would hope, which is to put the consumer right at the heart of their business and ensure that they are investing in or that their data is used appropriately. But inevitably, as the technology grows, as we've talked about, we have to be mindful of how data is being used, where it exists, and when it is personal data and financial data in particular, there are checks and balances in place. But I think the punchline here is that transparency is the key. You should be able to know exactly how your data is being used and where it's being used and what for. And if you ensure that happens, then we can all benefit from it. AI has great potential, not just to make it, I'm also responsible for productivity, right? And some of the things that we are doing on productivity is around how technology can be harnessed to make people more productive at work. And AI could potentially transform how workers are able to operate in your average day. And that's not just artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence as well, where we can use the power of technology with a human being to get a greater output. So we shouldn't lose sight. Yes, there are risks and we should be mindful of safety, but we shouldn't, when having these conversations, discount or ignore the fact that it presents a huge opportunity for productivity. And the other aspect is on our health, actually, and our security and our well-being. It's incredibly interesting how AI and augmented intelligence is being used in life sciences in particular. And so it's just, the potential and the opportunity should always be mentioned at the same time as the risks and safety. And that's what the summit is about. It's about getting a global consensus on how we approach AI to get the benefits out of it while also protecting as many people as possible.
And that point about as sort of individuals protecting our own data, I think that is going to be key. that it is held by us. The idea that we're going to be more productive, I think, is absolutely fantastic. I think there's a lot of attitudes that I'm seeing about embracing this technology. You know, this is a huge technology advancement. It's a transformation. The idea that we don't have to go through the drudgery of our email box every day, I mean, fills me with joy for all the people who write to me, but also fills me with dread to having to manage it. So any way that we can actually look at being more productive in that sense, I think is one that we do have to embrace, whilst at the same time making sure that we can protect people's data. But how do you really think we can do that? Because, you know, we've got cases at the moment with people like Stephen Fry who've been completely copied, and people are reproducing him and using his voice, and you know, that is his livelihood, and he's struggled to protect that. So how are we going to, you know, that's just one individual who can raise that point. I don't know whether AI will copy you or me. We're most probably not as important as he is, but how do we protect ourselves from that type of sort of reproduction, if you like?
Yeah, it's definitely deep fakes, I think they call it. It's a real problem and a huge concern. And I think we're very alive to that. That's why we've consulted widely. That's why we're convening global leaders to really put in place an agreement that we're going to look at this in detail. One of the areas is impersonation, of course. We'll see how that shakes out, but you're absolutely right to highlight the importance of it. It's a real concern. And I think the best thing we can do at the moment is just be aware of its existence. A lot of people don't realize actually that, you know, the person on the end of the phone might not actually be who you think it is. And just raising awareness is the first thing that we can do. And then as a government, we'll look to work with other governments around the world as well as with industry to figure out how we can tackle that.
No, I think the fact that we're having the conversations, you know, it would be wrong to say that we all have the answers, but the fact that we are convening, the fact that we are conversing, the fact that we are making these conversations open and transparent, I think is, you know, it very much is a step in the right direction. I actually had the pleasure this week of knowing why I insist that my children call me mummy, because when I got the scam saying, "Hi, mum, my bank account has been, you know, I need some money transferred." So I think there's also an element of talking to people about, you know, how we communicate. So, I mean, I knew immediately that was somebody trying to get me to transfer money, but that's not often the case. And we're seeing a lot of people, all generations, all ages, some people losing life savings. So making sure that we can bring these checks and balances, not only through consumer duty, but potentially through further legislation to protect. You know, we started by saying it's really important to democratize access to these products, to encourage people to save, but we need to protect their savings as well. I just want to move us on a little bit because this industry is moving so fast. And one of the things that we need to really drive this is the skills and talent. Now, we're terribly proud in Wales about the work that we are doing with our FE and HE colleges and all the way through from junior schools, where we're working with our FinTechs and financial services to raise awareness of this industry as being a fantastic career that people can follow. So what else are yourselves and your colleagues doing to really encourage education and uptake for these types of skills? And you know, it's not just finance and understanding finance, but all of the technical skills that will enable us to build the AI models of the future that are fair and equitable to all.
So I think there's three parts to that. The first is that, as you alluded to, we've got to get young people energized about the opportunities in technology. I don't think it takes much to do that, but what we've got to ensure is that there are the training courses and the colleges to be able to facilitate that training. And certainly we in Westminster have been very focused on shifting the mindset, if you like, that degree is the only way and the only route to job or, better life ahead, much more in favor of technical colleges that are much more focused on technology, but other vocational, technical courses as well. And so I think that's an important shift, and just, again, getting in early, making sure that young people know what's open and available to them. When I was younger and thinking about maybe what I wanted to do one day, I had no idea what financial services was. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and there was very limited options for me to learn about different options and different careers. I think that's changed quite a lot. There's always more we can do, but that's one part of it, is ensure we've got that pipeline of talent coming through young people. The second aspect is that, historically, certainly financial services, and to a certain degree as well, technology was male dominated. And I think we've made some great progress on ensuring that we've got more women involved and running businesses that are both financial and in the tech sector. In fact, last year, I think more women set up businesses in the UK than at any point in history, which is a really important development, I think. And we've got the Investing in Women Code, which has now got 190 financial institutions signed up to it, which is really trying to, ensure that boards of companies have somebody dedicated to ensure that there are opportunities for everybody, and that transparency is key when looking at, employee compensation and also composition. So I think, making sure that there's opportunities for everybody, even later in life, is important. And then the third aspect is ensuring that we've got a good, where there are skills gaps, that we are able to bring in talent from other countries around the world, and ensure that, people who want to come and work here and add to our economy, add to the skills that we have in the technology sector in particular, they're able to do that. You mentioned the Ron Khalifa review, which we've now we've executed on most of his recommendations. One of them was about a global talent visa, which we've executed on. And that's to ensure that people overseas can come to the UK, bring their talent, their knowledge, set up a business, work for one of our companies, and move us forward together. So those three aspects, making sure we've got the right talent coming through from young people, making sure that we've got a really equal opportunity across genders and ages is vital, and ensuring that we're able to bring in the talent from overseas to fill gaps that we can learn from them, that's key too.
So we're almost out of time. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. But I think, just finally, you've had the opportunity to see a little bit more of what Wales can offer. We have a thriving FinTech sector. I'm terribly proud that Ron Khalifa calls me the thorn in his side, because he cannot actually make a speech without mentioning Wales. But we've also got lots of other components which are contributing to the financial sector. So what's your takeaway from today?
Well, my takeaway is that we need to be a bit louder about what's going on in Wales.
He's going to say it. He's going to say it, isn't he? Louder and prouder.
I absolutely am convinced that all corners of the United Kingdom are firing on cylinders, and we need to ensure that when we talk about the country's performance as a whole, we appreciate that there are areas that maybe don't get spoken about enough, where they are really driving our innovation. They're employing tens of thousands of people who are contributing to not just the local economy, but the overall economy. And I'm convinced that we can talk about that a lot more, and I certainly will be doing, because I've been blown away by some of the businesses that I've met. It's been fascinating.
We absolutely believe that we are part of Team GB. We will not be able to compete on the global stage if we do not collaborate together. We work together, we collaborate together, and hopefully that's one of the things you'll also take away from here. We have a lovely word in Welsh, which is cwtch, and that is that we bring people together. So we're stronger together. We're looking forward to your continued support, not only with what Wales has to offer, but with the rest of the regions, to keep the UK at the top of FinTech innovation. And that is where the UK is, so we should be proud of that.
Well, we're certainly doing, I should just say, there's a lot going on in central, in the Westminster discussions that I have about, how we can support the overall economy of Wales. We've got 2 free ports, we've got investment zone we're working on with the Welsh Government at the moment. We've got the deal that we talked about with Cardiff. There is a lot going on here. The Centre for Financial Innovation as well is going to be a critical part of joining it all together. So please know that from us in Westminster, we recognise how important this is to our overall economy, and we're doing what we can to invest in.
Yeah, no, we're really grateful for you to come and visit, come and absorb. And as I said, we're only going to succeed when we work together. So stronger together. It's the motto that we have here in Wales, across our businesses and across our sort of collaborative and wider economy and ecosystem. So Gareth, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, everybody else, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, thank you very much indeed. That was most enjoyable.